Hey YouTube land, Tech Anders here doing another action figure review. Now this is for something new for 2020, and this is the G.I. Joe Retro Wave 1 Baroness. If you're not familiar with the G.I. Joe Retro line, it's basically well, it was a line announced, I think it was late last year, early this year, and people were hyped up about it. They were hoping it would have been O-ring style figures, like the classic vintage 80s G.I. Joe, but essentially what it is, it's kind of reissues and redecos and repaints of some of the classic G.I. Joe line figures, or from the 25th anniversary to the 50th anniversary. So she comes in this new style bubble card back, an image of her on the left hand side, and then Cobra the enemy, the big G.I. Joe logo, and she would be in here, but I have her opened up. On the back of the card you get to see both Wave 1 and Wave 2 figures. So for Wave 1 you got Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Baroness, and Destro. For Wave 2, Wave 1 was Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Baroness. Wave 2 is Scarlet, Roadblock, and Destro. So out of all of them, Scarlet and Roadblock are new, I wouldn't say new sculpts, but they're reuse of newer figures, but with based on the old sculpts, or on the old designs. Whereas Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Baroness, and Destro are reissues of kind of recent release figures, but with new updated deco. So for an example, because I have him here, this is the 50th anniversary Destro. He is essentially what the retro line Destro is, except he doesn't have the gold Cobra logo, and these straps are done in a slightly grey black color, and his boots have a slightly grey color to them. But I will show that again later. So onto the figure herself. So the Baroness is based off the second version of Baroness that was released during the 25th anniversary line. As far as I know, I think she first came in a battle pack. Unfortunately, I can't find my version of her. I know I do have one, but the only version I can find is this customized one, is the one that I made from the first version. She's actually a amalgamation of two versions of Baroness. So the very first original 25th anniversary version of Baroness had some very skinny proportions. The head is different. The one that came initially had a wavy kind of hair, and her head would only turn in like very limited. This one is sort of limited as well. The head off this one is from this figure, the same figure they reused, but they did a comic version of her in, or was a cartoon version of her in blue, in kind of blue and yellow deco, and I just swapped the heads over because I preferred this head. It gives more range of movement. The only difference, the only downside then is there was a backpack with this one, but you can't utilize that backpack. But this is basically what their very first sort of modernized version looked like. So you can see she kind of has some similar deco to the new one. You see the belt is grey. There's a slight difference between the black of her boots and the uniform's clothing. Her gloves are gloss black, so there is slight differences. And then just to bring in some of the other versions of Baroness, I will go over the articulation and her accessories. So the first kind of use of this body was for this figure. This is the Resolute Baroness. Hope I got that right, or is it Renegades? No, Resolute. This is the one that was released for the Resolute line. Again, it was part of a box set. This is when they first utilized this version of the sculpt. Main difference is she has this not soft goods, but it's a plastic, wouldn't call it a cloak, but it's more of a, lower skirt piece. Head was slightly different. Well, it was more based on the animated version. Can't remember if she actually shows up in the in Renegades. It's been or in Resolute. It's been a while since I watched it. It was like a online animation that they did, and it was kind of aimed at the kind of older generation of G.I. Joe fans. It was a lot more serious, had some really cool designs. Destro was pretty cool in it, so was Cobra Commander, but this is a version of Baroness. So they reused this body to create this version, and as you can see, she has the red Cobra logo. She has grey accents on her gloves, on the edges of her gloves. Her belt buckle is done in a grey, and if I flip around the back and just move her hair out of the way, she does have a peg hole on the back for backpacks, but because of the way the hair is done, you can't really use that. Her head sculpt is quite nice. Now, one thing I've always found about the Baroness figures, and I'll bring in another one that uses this sculpt. This is the San Diego Comic-Con Transformers crossover one. This one came with Ravage. So it was a San Diego Comic-Con. Again, you have that kind of wavy hair. The other thing that they tended to do a lot with Baroness is they seem to give her this really pale complexion. It was the same on the animated one, and the very first kind of version that reused this body in this kind of deco, her head sculpt was the same as this, but utilized that really pale skin tone. And in fact, if I just bring in another two Baronesses that I have, this is the movie one, and this is also in one of the ones from the Rise of Cobra movie, which was made in 2009. This is the standard Baroness figure, and then this is Paris Pursuit Baroness. So the legs on this one are actually the same legs that were used on this figure. So this figure has been around for a while, but overall it's quite nice sculpt. Articulation wise, arms can go up, you can rotate all around, there's a single joint in the elbow, there's a swivel in the wrist. Now with my one, the right arm is very loose for some reason. It's just the way it came. I did manage to get this off a buddy of mine who sent it to one of my other friends to post it to me. So a shout out to Otto and Frank for getting this to me. This is a really cool figure. I do really like her. I do have a couple of Baronesses, so I am quite ecstatic, but I was really happy to see that Hasbro went and did a kind of more, they're trying to do this more, what are they called, photoreal style faces on these figures. So they're trying to get the skin tones and stuff looking more like realistic people. One of the accessories she comes with is her base with her name on it and the Cobra logo. There's two peg holes on it. You can see the trademark on this, if you can see it on camera, is 2007. So these bases have been around a while. These bases were first introduced for the 25th anniversary line. You get this case, it's a attaché case, which opens up. Now you might be wondering why there's these indents on it. This again is another reuse item. This was originally came with, I believe it was this version of her, and it was the Mars Industries case from the 2009 movie, and there was little green warheads in this for the nanomites, and you'd be able to store them in this. You see, it comes with a small submachine gun. She comes with a larger rifle with a stock on it. Again, she comes with two more reuse weapons from that movie line figure. So these are the weird kind of laser pistol type things that the movie version had. The reason they have little pegs on the side of them is because on the movie version of this figure, the 2009 one, you actually have two peg holes on the side of her legs, which were intended for the guns to fit on. You don't have that in this one. And then the other thing she comes with, again, another throwback from that 2009 line, is this thing. In the movie, it's in one of the scenes, this thing comes out of one of the vehicles, digs itself into the ground, she stands on it, and it twirls back up to basically take her away. But what they did is they gave it a grappling hook instead, so she has this kind of base and grappling hook. if you want it. I'm not sure how many people really use this thing. It was probably just chucked into a box. I know I've gotten it with another figure, another couple of figures, and again with every figure I got it with, it was just discarded or chucked to the side. But overall, she's quite nice. Back to the articulation, because I did get sidetracked there. She does have a waist articulation. She has, upper diaphragm crunch. She doesn't have anything in the waist, and she has forward kick, dual knee, so she can go over 90-degree bend on the knee. She can't really kick back too much because of the butt sculpt. She has a joint in the knee, or sorry, in the ankle, so she has a swivel and a forward and back hinge on the knee, on the ankles, for doing, if you want, running poses. She does have 2 peg holes on the bottom of her feet, so if you have the base, you can put her into a sort of running pose. And another thing which I will bring in, this is, I believe, this is what I believe is the original weapon that the very first version of Baroness came with. This isn't the original one from the 80s. It's one of the reissues. I believe this was reused a few times during the 2000 line. But if you have this rifle, you can slightly fit it into her hand. It is a slight bit big, but you can give it to her. One thing to note as well is her left hand is designed as a trigger finger, where her right hand, it does have sort of a trigger finger on it, but it's not as predominant as the one on the left hand. I just show the hands up. Her trigger finger is a lot more predominant on her left hand than it is on the right. So if you have weapons that will fit her hands, I think they're more likely to be held in her left than right hand, which is interesting because on the actual cover art of her card, she actually has her rifle in her right hand instead of left. But I don't recall if that was reversed or anything like that. But as you can see, it's that rifle, which is pretty much the same rifle. It's supposed to be this rifle. You can even see the design is somewhat similar. It has that ribbing bit and it has the scope on it. Whereas the more modern versions of her kind of got repackaged with this rifle quite a lot. So there is that. But overall, she's quite a nice figure. Now, if we just get her to stand without falling over, I can bring in my tape measure and I can show you how tall she is. So she should stand around the 4-inch mark. Bear with me a moment. So there she is, and I've after knocking her over, but she does stand around the 4-inch mark. Just bring her back in. So she's a tiny bit just under. But if I bring in Destro, you see Destro is a good bit taller than her. And just for other size comparison, here is Ellie Sattler from the Jurassic World Evolution or Jurassic Park line. So she's a bit smaller again. And then for another Cobra female, here is the G.I. Joe Club's version of Pythona from the Cobra La kind of series. There was only a few figures redone in modern version for Cobra La. Pythona was one, and Nemesis Enforcer was the other. The other figures like Globulus and the Royal Guard were never reissued, even though I would love to have seen modern ones of them. I know Cobra La isn't people's favourite cup of tea. For the fans, it does kind of leave a bad taste because it was, the old animated movie wasn't one of the favourite things, but I quite enjoyed it. Plus, it was my first kind of introduction to animated G.I. Joe stuff, because we didn't have the Real American Hero cartoon series over here when I was growing up. So we had Action Force, and the cartoon series was released way later. But overall, it's nice. It's a nice figure. As far as I know, I think they're around the $15 mark in the States. They haven't come out over here in Europe, as far as I know. I'm not sure if there is plans by Hasbro to release them to the mass market over here. I know some collector shops have got them in for, you know, specialty shops like comics book store shops and stuff that have gotten a few, namely the Dublin City Comics had got in a few of these, and they also got in the Classified series. So I don't know if they're going to be getting others in, but it is just worth noting that. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick video review of the Baroness from the G.I. Joe retro line. And as I say in my videos, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Cheers, guys.